I'm Donald Leafy, President of Gulfstream Air Video Incorporated, and it's my pleasure to introduce David Patrick, Senior Vice President of Carl Goldberg Models Incorporated. David has won or placed in over 45 competitions, including being a member of the third place World Championship team in 1989. He was a 3-time winner of the Canadian Nationals, 2-time winner of the Tangerine Internats. David has participated in the Tournament of Champions. He certainly is a qualified pattern flyer and knowledgeable instructor. It's a pleasure for me to give you David Patrick.
Thanks, Don, for the glowing introduction. The purpose of this video is to improve our fellow modelers' flying skills by my proven techniques that I've developed over the years. Let's go ahead and give them a few pointers.
Good.
One of the interesting things about aerobatics is that even the most complicated maneuvers are based on the simple maneuvers such as the loop, the roll, the occasional spin or snap. This airplane here, the Carl Goldberg Models Eagle II, is a very popular sport training aircraft. Most people probably have learnt on airplanes similar to this. It is also capable of very good loops and rolls, and of course takeoff and landings. But it does have its limitations. You wouldn't want to ask this airplane to do a precise 8-point roll like a more modern pattern ship. Good airplane to start with. This is an airplane I designed for competition aerobatics. It's called a Conquest 5. It's designed specifically for the 22 maneuvers in F3A and does them very well. If you want to go outside the envelope, such as a knife edge loop, it will not do that very well. But for the 22 maneuvers, such as the avalanche, stall turns, Humpty Bumps, it will do an excellent job of these maneuvers. This is the Carl Goldberg Models ultimate biplane. Powered with a YS-120 such as this one, it's capable of some pretty fantastic aerobatics. While it can do all the maneuvers a pattern ship can do, maybe not quite as precise, but the maneuvers are more varied, such as it'll do a vertical snap roll or knife edge loop. If you want to go all out for the wild and crazy maneuvers, this is the airplane to do it with.
Is there anything different that I would need to do to the plane in preparation for flying maneuvers?
Okay, not that much different, but you have to do it more carefully. You should go over the airplane, make sure things such as the gaps are sealed. There should be no gaps between the ailerons. Sealing with ultra coat or Scotch tape works fine. Your servos, throttle linkages, etc. should work perfectly, flawlessly. There should be no slop whatsoever. You've got to take the extra time to make sure the airplane is balanced according to the plans, and that the airplane is balanced this way as well as this way. Bottom line, you have to take the time to make sure the airplane is set up correctly so you don't have to fight any unwanted tendencies of the airplane to do things on its own.
Okay, David, so you're telling me that it's not good enough just to have the correct gap between the trailing edge and the ailerons. You've got to further cover that with monocoat. That matters?
It makes a big difference. Not only will you get a quicker roll rate or a more positive roll rate, the airplane, believe it or not, will even loop better with a totally sealed up aileron. You shouldn't stop there. You should seal up the aileron, both of them of course, the elevator and the rudder. It makes quite a difference. While we're on this, the balance point of an airplane is always an interesting subject. You should start out with what the plan says. If you move the center of gravity forward, what you get basically is an airplane that in pitch is more stable. If you move the CG back, the airplane will become progressively less stable. If you go too far back, you'll reach a point where the airplane will become unstable. So if you're going to move the CG after what is recommended, use maybe 1/4 of an ounce of it at a time until you're happy with what the results are.
David, is there anything additionally that I need to do to my engine prior to flying maneuvers?
Okay. There isn't a lot different, except you got to pay more attention to the details. With a properly set up engine, you'll get more power, more reliable idle, and better control of your engine, which will again help you in your aerobatics. A couple of points to note. One is that when you hook up the throttle, you should take a lot of time in making sure you've chosen a good servo. There's no slop whatsoever. This is particularly important when you throttle down. This gives you a very precise idle control. Another thing is when you set up your servo to the throttle arm, you should follow what I call the 90-degree rule. In other words, at mid-throttle, this should be 90 degrees, and the servo should be at 90 degrees as well. This takes away any differential, gives you a nice linear response. Another thing about the engine, Don, is setting up the carburetor properly. Really quite easy to do when you follow a couple of basic rules. First thing you do is you start up the engine, you go to full power, and set the high-speed needle to maximum power. That's easy to do. When you've got that, then richen it just a little bit, a couple of clicks maybe. With the engine continuing at full power and everything's warmed up, you pinch the line quickly. If the engine picks up RPM slightly, that's probably the optimum setting. If you pinch the line and it quickly drops down on RPM, you're a little bit lean, richen it up some more. When you think you have that right, and the engine again at full power, bring the nose up and listen to see if there's any RPM change. If the RPM drops, again, richen it up a little bit. That's your high speed. It's simple as that. Low speed is a tricky one. This is where most people fail. You go to low power. Most two-cycle engines should idle reliably between 2,000 and 2,500 RPM all day. Make sure you have a good plug, good fuel obviously, like K&B, PowerMaster, Cool Power. Put the engine to idle and slowly bring the power up after it's idled for, let's say, 20 seconds. If it stutters and chokes, it's too rich. Another way of checking that is at idle, you pinch the fuel line again. If the engine dies, it's too lean, if it dies quickly. If it slowly picks up RPM, it's probably a little bit too rich. That's how you set the low speed. Again, going back and forth and taking the time. Myself, I don't even go to the flying field unless I spend an evening just making sure the engine's 100% right. Then I know I have a reliable engine, I don't have to worry about it. One of the features of the more modern high-performance engines is some of them have pumps. A pump is a real nice feature. It provides nice steady fuel delivery to the carburetor, which means when you pull straight up or go down, the engine's needle is always set the same. Very easy to set up, particularly on a YS. Consider it as the low-speed needle. Like when we set the low-speed needle on the other engine, or the other technique by pressing the fuel line, you do the same thing with the pump. Put the engine to idle, you listen to it, pinch the line. If it slowly picks up RPM over a long period of time, chances are the pump is too rich, lean it out. If you press it and the engine dies rather quickly, let's say within 5 seconds, chances are the pump is too lean, richen the pump. On a YS, you probably don't want to move it much more than maybe 1/8 of a turn at a time. Go in slow increments. Once it's set, don't change it anymore. If you're still having problems with idle, you may have some dirt in the system, or you probably need a new plug.
David, my radio has dual rates. How would I go about setting that up?
Yeah. Good question, Don. The dual rate is very often not very well understood. It's a very simple accessory or option that can really help your flying. The way to set the dual rate up is that you do most of your flying at low rate, go to high rate for spin and snap roll maneuvers. And the high rate should be set up so at full stick it will just barely do the spin and just barely do the snap roll, and that's enough throw. A common mistake is having at high rate too much throw, and sometimes even at low rate too much throw. What this does to your flying is, first, it's hard to fly smoothly. You're not utilizing the dual rate to its best advantage, and the system resolution, the preciseness of the radio, you lose some overall system resolution. When you go to low rate, a quick way of reference to set up the low rate, for example on ailerons, if you go to full aileron throw, you should do about 3 rolls in about 6 seconds. And that should be about right for low rate. And again, when you go to high rate, the airplane should just be able to do a spin, and that's set up for high rate. Now that we have the engine set up and the airplane all nice and straight and balanced, let's sort out in our minds how we want this airplane trimmed out once it's flying. Some people like to trim the elevator, for example, so the airplane is diving slightly, and they have to hold a little up elevator to keep it nice and straight. I like to set the airplane up and recommend that we trim it with the trim controls so it will fly straight and level indefinitely. This makes the airplane a lot easier to fly through the various maneuvers. Another thing that you might want to touch upon is, again, on a nice calm day such as today, point the airplane into the wind and pull rather abruptly straight up, and then let go of the controls. What we're checking here is if you have the correct amount of right thrust to compensate for torque. What will happen is if you don't have enough right thrust, as the airplane goes up, it'll tend to wander to the left. Okay? If you want to verify that, what you do is you, again, pull the nose up after you've added a little bit of right trim. If it then goes up straight, chances are you'll need a little bit of right thrust to compensate for that. That's easily done with shims or adjusting the engine mount. Once you got that so you can pull straight up and you get a nice straight climb, it'll make it so much easier to pull nice round loops over the same area. Square loops, stall turns will be a lot easier. This so you're not constantly fighting the torque factor. Other than that, you're ready to go fly. We're going to do a couple of basic maneuvers when we go flying this afternoon. Basically, we're going to do a loop, a roll, and a few spins, and maybe a snap roll or two. What's interesting about, again, like I mentioned before, even the most complex maneuvers are based on a loop and a roll, or a segment of each maneuver. Square loop with half rolls, that's a K5 maneuver, a very difficult maneuver according to the FAI schedule. All it is 4 quarter loops and 4 half rolls in sequence. Again, what I'm trying to say is that you look at a complicated maneuver, you can reduce it to doing simple loops and simple rolls, and you're done. Let's go fly.
Good.
Yes. Here we go. Full power, keeping it straight with the rudder. Little elevator, nice rotation. There we go. Okay, let's watch this again in slow motion. Slowly apply power. Use the rudder to keep the airplane straight. You'll probably favor right rudder as your airspeed builds up. Little up elevator to rotate. Not too much. Nice smooth takeoff, keeping the wings level. Easy.
Yeah, David, how steep do you make that first turn?
I like to keep that turn about 30 degrees, not much more.
And I guess always away from the pits, huh?
Yep, always. Let's watch this again.
Boy, look how long you keep the rudder in.
Yeah. I like to keep the rudder maybe up towards 50 feet of altitude. Again, until the airspeed builds up, you do need a little rudder to keep the airplane straight, even in flight.
This right here, this shows the biggest difference. That nice, long, smooth, scale-like takeoff.
Be smooth on the controls, and it'll look good. Okay, let's go on to landings. The key to a good landing is a good approach with the right airspeed. There's a nice one. Let's watch it again with another airplane. Nice approach. Try to keep the wings level. The airplane's throttle all the way back.
A little crosswind.
Slower and slower. Okay, again we've tried to keep the wings level all the way down to touchdown, and when the wheels touch, try to have full up elevator. This takes all the fly out of the airplane so it won't bounce back up in the air. When you have a full stall landing like we just had, as soon as the airplane starts rolling, take the elevator out. So there's no chance of it bouncing up in the air. Let's watch it again. We've got the throttle all the way back, trying to keep the wings level. Notice we have a little bit of up elevator because we're slowing down. A little more up elevator. The transition of flight to landing is a progressive amount of up elevator till touchdown.
Beautiful.
This is one of the things that you have to practice. Every airplane is different, but the result is the same. You're slowly applying elevator, rotating the airplane, so you touch on the main wheels, full stall. Good landing. Practice, and practice, and practice.
So flying circuits and touch and goes would be of help.
It's a great help. Even though I'm a competitor and I should know how to do a good landing, I get out there and I practice circuits and bumps with regularity.
Beautiful.
Let's go on to practicing straight flight. Really important practice. It may seem kind of boring, but it's important to teach yourself to fly the same line, whatever that line you establish, let's say it's 100 feet out, up and down the runway. You'll notice that as you become more proficient, you may not see much movement in the airplane, but there's subtle movements in the sticks to make the flight look smooth and straight. Okay, let's look at a basic turnaround maneuver called the split S. This one here is a variant called the Humpty Bump. The result's the same. You can turn around the airplane and bring it back the same altitude and the same line that you went out with. Okay, let's watch it again. This is the split S, 45 degrees, half roll, pull up elevator, throttle back about here, and you're back on the same line. Let's watch it. Pull up, hesitate, roll, hesitate, pull up elevator, come around, about here you start to throttle back. This is so you don't have excessive speed at the bottom of the loop and the airplane won't balloon. You'll end up being at cruising speed going by without any trim changes. Let's watch it again. Fairly easy maneuver to do, it just requires some practice to get the timing down. Use the split S at each end of your straight flight practice to tie it all together. Let's do the procedure turn. Another way of turning the airplane around to come back on the same line as a procedure turn. Here we're doing a right 90 degrees followed by a left 270 degree turn to come back down the same line. The beauty of this maneuver is that since you're not climbing, you're ending up at the same altitude, and since you're not diving, you're not changing the speed. Let's watch it again. It's also good practice because it gives you a couple of interesting angles to look at the airplane. Good practice is to do a procedure turn like we are here, a right, then a left 270. Do your straight flight from left to right, and do another procedure turn going the other way, which would be a left 90 followed by a right 270. This gives you a real good look at the airplane at all different angles. You'll find also that when you practice this, that when you do it from the left like we are now, when you go to the right, you'll have to almost relearn the maneuver. Now let's go on to the axial roll. There's the Conquest, now the Ultimate, now the Eagle Trainer, which is quite capable of doing a pretty good roll. To enter it, I recommend that full speed, nose up a little bit, full aileron. When she's upside down, you might want to give a little bit of down elevator, then release. There we go, there's the down, and release. Let's work on the loop. Again, smoothness is the key. A lot of people, when they do their first loops, tend to just haul on full up elevator and do a tight loop. What you really got to do is do it nice and smooth. Nice and gentle. There we go, we start to pull up. You may need a little right rudder, like here. Again, to keep the airplane going straight up. Coming down the backside loop, start throttling back.
I can't get over how big that loop is, David.
Let's watch watch it one more time. Little right rudder to keep it straight. Over the top, stretch the top so it's nice and round. Throttle back so we don't have too much speed on the bottom. Keep those wings level and smooth out. Nice loop. Now if you don't have the power like this airplane will have, like an Eagle or a basic trainer, you might not want to do it as large. But power will dictate the size of the loop and speed. Let's try some straight inverted flight. Here it is with the Conquest. Nice rollout, wings level. The ultimate, we'll bring it down a little bit to show it off. And now with the Eagle 2. Pull the nose up a little bit as she rolls inverted. And here we are with the split screen. You'll notice that I use a little bit of elevator to roll into the inverted position, and when I'm rolling out, I use what we call top rudder. Watch the right rudder when I roll. Okay. This holds the nose up to make a nice clean roll. The reason why we do it this way, only adding the rudder on the exit, is because on a trainer like this it starts to slow down. In a pattern ship we would use the rudder going in and out. Now for the stall turn. This is more of a timing maneuver than anything else, and the right application of power. Many people, when they do a stall turn, they tend to throttle all the way back and then just hammer the rudder across. While sometimes it'll work, it's more of a chance maneuver. Let's go into detail on how to do a nice stall turn. Okay, here we go. Pull straight up. Now for illustration, I'm doing a quarter roll so you can see the airplane better. Throttle back, but not all the way back. I have probably about 20% power. Slowly add rudder, and then have full rudder. Right there. Now throttle all the way back. Hold the rudder in, and slowly remove the rudder after you finish the stall turn. This stops the tail from wagging on the way down. Let's watch this again in real time. Up, throttle back, a little bit of rudder, now full rudder to get it across. Hold that rudder in for a little bit, and recover. That's the proper technique.
Did they take points off, David, for the tail wagging up at the top of that when you're coming out?
In competition, yep. It's rather a severe downgrade. That's why we hold the rudder. See, it's being held here and slowly removed. There, done.
Nice.
Now for one of my favorite maneuvers, the good old spin. Death-defying spin. What we're doing here is a 3-turn spin. We're going to do a 3-turn spin every time to illustrate. Entry is very important. You gotta have a full stall. See how the nose dropped? Then she's ready to spin, not before. If you try to spin before then, the airplane will do somewhat of a snap roll. Let's watch it in slow motion. Hold the nose up, more elevator, up elevator, up elevator, then the nose will drop. Only then do you start spinning. There. Now you get full up elevator, full here right aileron, and full right rudder, and she's spinning. Just before the end of the third one, you let go. She recovers instantly. Back to level flight. You can spin in either direction. I tend to spin to the right. Again, you must wait for the nose to drop. Then the airplane's fully stalled and ready to spin. There's the drop. Full controls. And recover. There's another good turnaround maneuver. Half loop, half roll. Here we go. Let's watch it again. Here you do your half loop like we talked about the loop before. A little right rudder is required here to keep the airplane straight. Now since I roll right, I keep the right rudder in, to hold the nose up as we roll to upright. And she comes out nice and straight. If you were to roll left, you'd have to use left rudder to keep the nose up. Since you roll right, it's a lot easier. Getting back to what we talked about, all maneuvers are basically loops and rolls. Here's a combination. Half loop, half roll.
David, what a great day. This has really been a lot of fun. I've learned a whole lot too.
Oh, good. Really glad you enjoyed it. A couple of points. Don't practice too hard. 3 or 4 flights a day is plenty. Enjoy flying, and look forward to the next video on how to do more advanced aerobatics.
Great. Thank you a lot.
Oh, you're welcome.